ça.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be in Riga, my first time here, but really excited about today. Maybe I should say, so I hope this is correct. I just did Google Translate with all the mistakes that we can do with it, but I wanted to bring up a local flavor. Maybe I know you mentioned a few words I didn't get exactly, so I may repeat a few things, but just to introduce myself, I'm born in France a few years ago now. I'm now French and American citizen. I lived in the US for a while. My dad was Italian, and my mom was half French and half Argentine, so a bit of a mix. I did most of my career at Coca-Cola. I worked for Coke for 25 years in many different roles, in marketing, but also mainly in sport. And 2 years ago, I decided to leave both the US and Coke and started a new chapter in my life, going back to my hometown in France, in Burgundy, in a small village, and start to be entrepreneur. So I launched two businesses. One is called Sport Matters Consulting, and I'm helping different organizations bring my sport experience to them. And the other one, which has nothing to do with sport, but there's a lot of passion behind that, it's around food and wine. So we can talk about that later on if you want, if you have an interest. So on my sport career side, I had a chance to be exposed to a lot of sports events. I covered 12 Olympics, but I never won any medal or even touch a medal. I was involved also with the FIFA World Cup, with the Rugby World Cup, with the World Championship of Athletics, ski, Tour de France, and many others. So I have a great sport career in the stand, not on the field of play, unfortunately, but athletes have always been a source of inspiration for me. So what I will try to do today is to give a few things. One is talking about what's happening in the world of sports and what are the trends that we are seeing. And two is giving, after having raised a lot of questions, maybe is bringing some sort of answers to you, something that could help you, or at least bring some inspiration. But before we start to do that, I would like to tell you a bit of a story about Kodak. You all have heard about that brand and the syndrome that Kodak face. You know, we call it the Kodak syndrome. What happened with them? It's a series of missteps that the leadership took over a few years that they haven't seen, they haven't understood what was coming out, what were the trends coming in, you know. And this and the fear of change. You may know that they were inventing the digital camera in 1970. Well, in fact, they have decided to not pursue to develop this because they say, if we do that, we're going to disrupt our business, which is about selling film and camera film. Okay, so big mistake, and eventually Kodak has really disappeared, you know. What happened to Kodak is happening to other organizations, you know. Think about Lego. They faced some challenges. They have been able to be back at the top of the game, and now they are again facing some different challenges because of gaming and how kids are playing these days. So what happened in this industry also happened in sport. Think about the Olympics. You know, some sport disappear. The ancient Olympic has disappeared for years. My old grandfather, Baron Pierre de Coubertin, let's pretend he's my old grandfather, brought back the games with the modern Olympics in the 19th century. Since then, the Olympic is trying to stay relevant, you know, trying to change things. So if you look at the road to Tokyo, the sport program will include new sports for the first time. 5 new sports and new disciplines will pop up in Tokyo. Next week, there will be the Youth Olympic Games in Buenos Aires. We're just talking of a lunch, you know. New disciplines will also come up over there. Breakdancing, you know, some new sports are appearing. So the Olympic is trying to stay relevant, to keep up with the change that we are seeing in society. But we have to say that it's a bit slow, you know, because change is not easy in our sports organization. Let me give you 2 examples that I've seen when I was working at Coke. One day, the marketing director of India is giving me a call. He said, well, we have a brilliant idea, you know. We're going to engage all our fans and ask for people voting to bring cricket to the Olympics. Say, okay, well, could be a brilliant idea, but it could be a big backlash. The reason why is I have no doubt that we're able to engage all the fans and having them voting in India for, we want cricket to the Olympics. That's an easy one. The challenge would have been the reality to bring cricket to the Olympics. Even if we were able to do that, think about, 8, 12 years, It takes so much time to change it. The pace of the Olympic is very different from what we are seeing in today's world. Think about outside of sports, how the technology has changed the game. Look at music. We're consuming vinyl and then CD, and now music is digital. We all consume by buying a subscription on Spotify or other sort of platform. Cinema industry has completely changed. Netflix, platform on demand where you can consume anywhere when you want is there. Media, print media. How many of you are still buying print newspaper? That's a real challenge for the industry. So industry will continue to evolve faster and faster, and we need to get ready to face that. Look at gaming. There is a lot of talk about should e-sport be an Olympic sport or not. I don't really care, that's not the question. But what is interesting is to understand that this is a growing business. I was yesterday in a conference in Switzerland where they were talking about e-sports and how this is growing. It's a $1.5 billion business, and it's growing and getting bigger and bigger. When I was at Coke, we were a partner of some e-sports competition, and I've seen in Korea a stadium, the Olympic Stadium, 50,000 people filled with fans watching the World Championship of League of Legends. This is crazy. This is growing, and we need to be cognizant of that. Technology is changing the way we are acting, the way we are consuming. Think about Uber. You just have to take your phone and you can order a car. Tomorrow you will be able, for your business, to order a truck to pick up and deliver your stuff. So things are changing. So I try to look at what's happening in sport. What is interesting that's happening in sport that is enough interesting to be noticed and think about it. The first thing is business approach. Sport is business, and you had new leaders that came to sports. Here's an example of the Golden State Warriors, so the franchise of the NBA in San Francisco. A few years ago, some venture capitalists from the Silicon Valley went and bought back the franchise. And they came up with a very disruptive, very different model of management. Not only they brought somebody to lead the franchise who has no experience with NBA, so very different. In the past, all the franchise, they had people with strong experience in the sports, in the NBA. This time, they brought a guy who was a specialist in managing companies. Okay? They brought people specialists in marketing, in digital. They look at how to engage the companies. They define a vision, and they say, at the time, it was one of the worst franchises of the NBA. They say, well, in 5 years, we're going to win the NBA title. Wow, that's a strong vision, bold vision. And they develop a plan to be successful to do that. Recruitment of players. The first coach they had made the best season for a while, but they decided to change coach. Why? They had the best season for a long time, and they decided to change coach. The reason why is because the coach was not fitting the vision they had. He had a management style that was not fitting completely how they envisioned things. So they brought a new coach that had zero credibility. He was a great player, Steve Kerr, but no credibility as a coach. He hasn't started. But he saw in that guy the power of sharing the same vision. So they took some risk, and while they had people who were specialists in managing business, they appointed a few people to advise them to make sure that what they were doing was right in terms of sports approach. So very different approach, very professional. All the success that they had so far with Golden State, it's the most successful franchise and very valuable. Look at football and how football clubs are becoming more and more global brands. You know, football has always been a strong sport, but now these brands, call it brands, you know, are engaging fans all around the world. They are so popular in Asia. They're very popular in North America. So what they have done, really, same thing. They had a business approach. They're managing these clubs as companies, you know. They have invested in capability. They're doing pre-season games in China, in North America. They're hiring agencies to manage their digital engagement in China to be relevant to the Chinese audience, you know. They do a lot of stuff in that space to be relevant. Look at the last example. So that's PSG. They just announced a new partnership, which is very interesting, which we'll see, it will come up probably in next year in 2019. You may have heard about the crypto money, the blockchain things. It's very complicated, but anyway, let me try to explain clearly. This partnership will allow fans from anywhere in the world to buy token, okay, virtual token. This token will allow these fans to have a role in the management of the club. So they will be able to vote for what will be the next jersey for next season, where the team should play the friendly games. So it's a way to engage the fans and play a role, not just in the city of Paris or in France, but anywhere in the world, you could have a word to say on how the club is managed. Obviously, they will not put the vote some strategic decision, but they will start to have some tactical things to offer to the fans. So very interesting in how they do that. This is another example of Formula E. You may have heard about the fan boost. So very interesting. The fans are now interfering in the competition. They are voting for their favorite driver, and if they have the most vote, that's an advantage for the competition, you know. So interesting format where the competition is built and how you can engage your fan in interacting. This new technology, the digitalization, has completely changed the way we are playing, consuming sport, you know, and especially with the young generation. You all have heard about the fact that the young generation is consuming less TV than the older generation. That's a fact. I saw yesterday a report from PwC confirming that there is really consumption from the young generation is over on all the digital. So we've seen the rise of all these new social broadcasters, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and so on, that are appearing. We saw also a new way of broadcasting. This is an example of Twitch. I don't know if you know that. Twitch is an online TV streaming that is born around gaming. So when they started to broadcast, it was probably 10 years ago, they were like showing kids playing online, but allowing the fans to comment live and interact. And you can see that on the right side, when they broadcast the movie, you have the fans who can interact. So what the young generation like into this is there is no filter. You can talk to the others and share things. And there is authenticity that the young generation is really looking at. Behind the scenes is very important. People who want, they're interested into the live competition, but in fact, non-live sport is also very interesting to many people. They want to understand what's happening behind the scenes, what the athletes are doing, how they prepare, what's their life, what music they're listening. So some clubs are investing on telling that story in a different way. You can see Bayern Munich has developed a Snapchat story. I was talking yesterday to a company called Dugout, which is, you have the major football club who have invested in this company, and what they are doing is creating content, you know, raw content. So very interesting to see that trend going on as well. But what is interesting is all these things are not only for the big ones. Anybody can take advantage of that. And that's what is interesting, is any sports club, any small sport organization, any individual can leverage these platforms in a certain way. Here is an example of Woodward. Woodward is a camp in the US. They have several in the US. It's about skateboarding, skiing, and all these kind of sports, you know. They have developed content that you can see on YouTube, you know, and they have seasons. So what they film is kids being in the camp and living their life of doing skateboarding or painting their board and doing that kind of stuff, you know. They have more than 300,000 subscribers on YouTube. Their content sometimes is viewed by more than 1 million people. So it's a very small organization, very tiny, you know. The British Tennis Table Federation did a live stream on Facebook recently of one of the competition. More than 2 million people watch, you know. Canal Plus, the French broadcaster, was saying yesterday at the conference that they did produce some content about a football club in 3rd division. And some of the people are saying, who cares about a club in 3rd division, you know? Well, the reality is you have people that will follow because the content was produced well done. So content matters if it's properly done. Another trend that is very interesting is athletes and the power that they have. You know, athletes are realizing that they have some sort of power in their hands because they're able to have the reach to the fan directly. So here is an example of Piqué, Gerard Piqué from the Barça, has done a partnership with the Players Tribune, which is a media was created in the US to give the voice of athletes. So if you're an athlete, come on our platform and tell your story, okay? LeBron James started his own media. So we can see a new trend, which is the stars, you know, the athlete stars, start to understand that they don't need a media because they have the fans, they have the followers behind them. So they could be the media, okay? So that's a different thing that is interesting. We talk about influencers, and what is important is the blend of cultures. You know, it's not just about sport. Look at how we use music and artists to carry on some sport messaging. Here is an example that was done recently. FIFA World Cup final, France won, congrats, well done. They have released the jersey with the 2 stars, so the players on the field had that. At the same time, in the Stade de France in Paris, you have Jay-Z and Beyoncé wearing this jersey. Nike placement, so it's seen by millions of people. So the demand at the time to get that jersey that not only the football players are wearing, but also, I don't care about sport, but I love Jay-Z and Beyonce. I want to have that jersey because it's the thing that everybody's talking about. So leveraging influencers, not only in sport, but in other areas is super interesting. Technology is changing the way we are consuming sport. Today you can use your phone and book a fitness lesson, book your coach, you know, or having some tips from an expert in sport. You know, Nike has developed, for example, an app where you could have tips from experts when you want to train. It's not just for the expert athletes, you know. Building community. So this is in the football field. Tonsor, the startup that created something very interesting. It's an app that any football player can use. You register, you create your profile, you put your skills, and people will vote. And what is interesting is you have thousands, millions of players that are registered, which is very interesting for the club, for scouting, for identifying the next talents. So this is a different way of having access to new talents without having the fact to attend every game. So that gives you new opportunities. New trends also of online biking. So Peloton is a company that was created in the US. You have to buy that bike with a screen, you bike in front of your home, but you have an online class, okay? Interesting, that's not the only one. But you could have online class riding on the stage of the Tour de France, for example, with people from around the world. In fact, they are creating online competition. So this is what's happening. I'm at home on my bike, I have that screen in front of me, and I can see myself in the race with people from all over the world. So this is technology that helps to grow a sport. At some point, people, hopefully, they will go out and be on the bike, but this is very interesting. So we're talking a lot about technology. Obviously, technology is already playing a huge role in performance. You know, the US Olympic Committee, for example, had created a position of a chief of innovation. So that person was based in the Silicon Valley, and his role was to influence all the startups to invest in developing new products that could help performance, to increase performance, helping athletes to be better. Okay? So that's already existing. The number of technology is growing. I met last year at a conference a neurologist who developed a headset that some athletes are using to increase the concentration before competition. So there is no limit in what we can do with it. So we talk a lot about technology, but that's not all. You know, what is important also to notice is people want to have their needs, their expectation met. You know, sports competition is losing relevance. They want to have pleasure. Notion of health, outdoor nature is more and more important. So we are seeing new sports booming. Stand-up paddling. That has been a big shift, and the industry is moving with that over the last couple of years. Freestyle scooter, you know, BMX, all these things skiing and so on. It's not just about competing, you know, it's almost a lifestyle, you know. So the way you dress, the way you play with it. If you look at this competition, all these riders, the trick is important, but winning is, yeah, it's great, but it's not the end goal, okay? So they have a different mindset about that. CrossFit, if you haven't heard that, that's a huge move that become really a huge business today. And CrossFit is now available in different format for different audience. Color run, it's huge, massive development of color run. It's allow people that were not going to run because they have fun. The fun is the driver, the motivation to bring them to activity. Ultra trail or trail, there is more and more of this competition that is going on around the world. The ultra trail of du Mont Blanc recently at the end of August was amazing. They have to limit the number of participants because there's too much demand. You know, so it's getting big and bigger. What is important also to notice is inclusiveness. You know, I think there is a sense of how sport also could be more inclusive with disability, with people from different minorities and so on. There is still a lot of things that needs to be done in that space, but we can start to see a shift and recognition. We've seen the growth of Paralympics movement. That is growing, and the interesting trend as well is more collaboration with the Olympics, which will allow the Paralympics to grow even more. The notion of purpose and doing good things is more and more important, especially for the new generation. It's really matter to them. So brands and sport organizations have understand that. So that's why they are starting to see how we can leverage that to better engage our crowd. You know, so you can see an example from Barca playing with the snowball goal from the UN, and how they can engage the crowd to say, okay, what we can do to build a better world. I will end with a point on the brands and the role of the brands, because we are seeing a shift in what some brands are doing. So some brands are now playing the role or replacing some sports organizations. So you're all aware of Red Bull owning football clubs, but this is another example of Adidas, who created communities of runners. So they have created clubs in big cities around the world, in Berlin, in Sydney, in Paris, in London. And what they are doing is they're enriching the experience of these runners, okay? People are running everywhere. What they are doing is they are bringing the runners together and adding value to the experience that they are creating. Red Bull is also creating events. I mean, they have been doing that for a long time, no news. But what is interesting is, when I met a guy from Red Bull in the US, is how they get the creativity behind that. And what he told me at the time, it was very interesting. In fact, they had a sort of infusion of universities. So they have ambassadors that they have recruiting students in universities, and these students were thinking about creating some small events. Red Bull was supporting that. And as soon as one event was a bit successful, that they had potential, they were taking over and scaling the event. And that's how you can see some of the events today that become huge hit around the world. I had another point about that, but I don't remember, so I will skip that one. The last point is about the type of sponsors that we're seeing. You know, we used to have a lot of consumer brands. Now we are seeing more and more technology company coming in and being involved in the sport sponsorship. Uber, Manchester United, but think about the Olympic world as well. You've seen Alibaba coming in, Intel coming in, you know. So that's an interesting trend as well, to see these new tech companies playing a big role in that space. So what does it mean, you know, for us? What we can do with all of that? Well, the first thing is, if we are struggling today to develop our sports, we have to think differently. In fact, like our friend Einstein was saying, you know, we cannot really solve the problem if we apply the same recipe that we've been using for so long. It will not work. It doesn't work today, it will not work tomorrow. So we have to change, we have to act, we have to think differently. And the solution to that is creativity. You know, creativity, innovation is how we're going to be able to change, to grow, to develop ourselves. But for being creative, you need to have diversity in the thinking, okay? You may not be a creative person, that's not a problem. Go and look for the creativity outside. You know, bring other people that think differently. Creativity is coming from tensions. Okay, if you have two people thinking the same way, you will not be a lot creative. If you have 5 people with different thinking, you will produce some creativity, some tensions, and hopefully come up with something different. Look at what the big companies are doing. You know, Arsenal, Barca, they created innovation hub or innovation lab. What it is? Well, they have some issues or they have some problem they want to solve, you know. That could be related to spectators in the stadium or revenue or whatever. They identify these problems or opportunities, and they call out for startups to come and pitch to bring their solutions. You know, they don't have the answer. They want just to tap into that digital world, the world of technology, and having these smart young people that will come up with some brilliant solution. Don't ask me, I'm too old, but these young kids, they will come up with some interesting solutions. Look at another example of what happened recently with the International Tennis Federation. And I was yesterday with the CEO of Cosmos. So this is Gerard Piqué, the guy from Barca, who is the head of Cosmos. And Cosmos is an investment group who has pitched the International Federation to develop a new concept around the Davis Cup, okay? And there were some controversies, but they voted at the Assembly General and got the rights to develop that. What was interesting yesterday in what he said, in fact, the International Tennis Federation used us as a disruptor. They knew if they want to do something completely different inside, they will never be able. Because they have all the members of the Tennis Federation who think, most likely the same way, or they're not the most creative people. So they had to use people from the outside to bring that creativity inside. Very interesting, okay? They haven't brought the concept. They went to look from people that have nothing to do with tennis. Yeah, they may like tennis, but they're coming from football, they're coming from other world to bring that disruption. So I guess the first thing you need to do is to understand where to start. You know, what are the challenges you are facing? What is the opportunities in front of you? You know, is it about recruiting more players? Is your sport is still exciting or is boring? The format of the competition you have is too long. Think about cricket. There is a huge issue with cricket because a game that's long for 5 hours is not any more interesting to the new generation. So is it something you need to address the format of your competition and think differently, produce something different? Is it the cost of entry? Are the kids excited? Are the parents endorsing if the kids are playing? In the US, American football has facing an issue. Parents don't want the kids to play because of commotion. It's too dangerous, okay? Is it about the engagement of the fans? Do they have the right experience when they go to the stadium? Or the stadium is exciting? Do you have a right, good place, full of people? Is it exciting for the media? Does the partner want to be part of that? Do they want to invest? So all these questions, you need to start to look at what are the key things you need to address. And if you don't know, because you may not have a good understanding of what's the reality, ask people, ask outside. Go to ask the kids. Why do they like? Why they don't like? Why do they want to play? Because it's too serious. Because the rules like that. Because it's too boring. Ask the parents. Go and ask the teens who live in that digital world. They will have ideas. They will bring you ideas. Go to our startups. Ask your sport leaders, are they interested to be referee? Sorry, I won't never be to be a referee that gets cream every weekend on the field. Ask the fans. Ask them what would be interesting for them to follow. What will be the things that they will be interested to be involved in, So finding that common purpose where they will want to play, they will want to follow the game or the sport that you're developing. Think about your location, So location matters, okay? We talk a lot about experience. This is an example from the World Championship of Archery. Look at the environment. It's in Mexico. It's on the big square of Mexico City. Very different than the traditional sport field, So it's disruptive. It's attractive to people because people, I want to be part of that. That's look like a fun thing. It's not about having the biggest stadium. I'm crazy when I'm hearing all the federation wanted to have stadium at the Olympics with thousands of people. It doesn't matter. It's better to have a smaller venue, completely crowded, than having big venues with empty seats. It doesn't look good on TV. It's not the right enthusiasm and excitement you're creating for the fans in the stadium. So better to create scarcity, to make it rare, so people want to be part of the few that will live the experience there. How you can make it more exciting, for the kids at the games? Create some animation around that. Invest into this. That's important. You want them to have a good experience when they go and come here. This is an example from, I try to find concrete examples so that I've seen or I did in the fact. In 2003, I was the GM for the World Championship in Athletics in Paris, and I was working for different brands, and I was trying to find things that were interesting, and the research was showing that the young generation was not really passionate about athletics, okay? So I say, well, my role is to create excitement. So what can I do to bring them and be exposed to athletics? I did a couple of things, among a few things, but two that I think could be interesting. I created experiences, unique experiences. So the possibility to run the 100-meter just before the final of the 100-meter. So an hour before the final, we had selected 10 kids who were able to run on the field before the final. And that selection were shared through media partnership, radio, targeted to young people. So you had kids that were not at all. It was not for the elite athlete, it was for anybody. And they were coming with their friends. So while few were competing on the field, their friends were in the tribune. And we brought them in the suite, we give them a tour, and they were in the stands for the 100 meters, which was always like the peak time. So great experience for them. Another thing we did is we created an experience of 24 hours, which was super intense. So we brought them to play PS gaming. We brought them to meet athletes. We brought them to see an art exposition, street art. We brought them to the stadium to see the behind the scenes, to see the broadcast, how it works. 24 hours, completely crazy. Same thing in how we're engaging different community and the young generation. Entertainment, music. Think about that. That's super important. You need to bring, music. And it's not about the cost. Forget about, oh, it's too expensive, I cannot do that. You're all having friends, or having kids, or friends who have kids who are maybe a DJ, Another example on that World Championship we did is, at the Athletes Village, we had a space, and we had a very small budget. So I say, we need to be creative, okay? We need to be very creative. So I had two ladies working in my team in charge of that, and the first thing that came back is they came back with a brief from an agency and a budget of 150,000 euro. I said, you don't get it. We don't have money. We have very little. So you need to be more creative than that. Okay, they came back with a proposition that was 50,000. I said, no, we don't have. We need to be more creative. So at the end of the day, they were more entrepreneur. They went to IKEA to buy some stuff to equip the lounge. They look around them to bring their friends to be the DJ every night. We recruited young ladies who were hostess on the Tour de France, huge energy, that were able to connect with the athletes. Success was there because one of the key of success is on the last day of the competition, the winner of the 100 meter, who was an athlete from Nebula Kitts, a small island, but that guy asked us if he could be the DJ for the night. So that was a symbol of simple things, small budget, doesn't matter. It's about the creativity you put behind. How you can also think about food and beverages, the offer you have in the stadiums. I was recently talking to some friends in charge of a club of field hockey, okay, so small sports, sorry. They were explaining to me that they had a friend who had a food truck. There is a trend of growing more and more food trucks in some of the countries. So that friend is coming every Sunday in the stadium, doing some burgers, and some of the sandwiches and so on, the qualitative one and so on. So people are coming earlier to enjoy that and staying longer. So it's part of the thing, and how you can create something different, a bit more qualitative that you can offer to the people. You have to think also about how you can develop your brand. That's very important. At the end of the day, every experience, every product needs to be grown. So it's about growing your brand. So be different on how you communicate. Here's a very, very small example, but I'm supporting a football club close to my town. So I decided to invest into a set of jersey for the kids. And the club said, okay, well, we're going to put your logo. I said, no, don't put my logo. I don't have any client in the area, my clients are outside of the country or potentially in Paris, but I have nobody that will recruit there. But what matters to me is I want to make sure that the kids get the right message. Okay, so I say, I don't want my logo, but I want the message that kids will be proud to wear. So we put that message from Nelson Mandela on the jersey. I can tell you that not only the kids were super proud of having this, but every other team were commenting on it. To the point that I put a post on Instagram about that shirt and got some message from a sports instructor in Russia, another lady in Paris who wanted to buy the shirt for his kids, and so on. So small things, very small, okay? But you could be creative, you could be different and having a different impact. When you think about funding, there is new way of creating funding or raising funding. Here's an example of crowdfunding platform. Okay, you probably have heard about that and how you can really engage the community to fund some project. This is a platform that exists in France. I worked with this startup when I was in the US. We developed a project around Rio for Olympians and Paralympians athletes in 6 countries. Very interesting in how much people were able to invest and crowd. Another example would be a club of rugby in France who had to renew the path to the stadium, and it was costing a lot of money. They were able to raise 600,000 euro to repave that. The proposition they have too is like, when you buy a pavement, so your name will be on it, okay? So you may pay 20 or 30 euro, but you have your name on that street. So, okay, so different way of raising funding and credit. And the last piece is about leverage influencers, you know. If you are in sport and you're able to find maybe a famous athlete, or maybe somebody that has nothing to do with the sport, but like the sport, you know, the number 2 most famous influencer today is an e-gamer, you know. So it could be outside of your sport, but if you have somebody famous in your community that could help, he will bring the credibility. He will help you to raise the exposure. I would like to leave you with 8 things that I think are important if you think about development. One is the mindset. You know, you need to think differently as an entrepreneur. We need to shift the way that we used to manage sports organization. We need to be more entrepreneurial. It doesn't mean that we are here to grow business and so on. Yeah, we have to grow sport. That's what matters to us, okay? But you need to have that mindset because you're facing a lot of competition. So if you want to stand out, you need to be more creative than the others. Creativity and innovation. Think different. If you think the same way, you will not solve the problem. It's obvious. So if you're not able to find a solution, not a problem. Go outside, engage people, look for students, partner university, bring maybe an agency that will be part of the movement. Go for outside solutions on this. As we have seen, you know, I talk about football, I talk about, example, engagement is absolutely key today, you know. How you bring your fans part of that. Make them socios, you know, make them part of the life of your club or your organization. Give them some, empower them. The notion of purpose, why you exist, you know, when you look at the Adidas runners, you know, this community has a purpose of running together, sometimes for good cause or not. The ultra trail community is also going for the nature and so on. So what's your purpose? Is it about health and giving kids fun, or what is exactly? New platforms and technology. Think about how this technology or these new platforms can help you. And again, if you're not a specialist in these platforms, not a problem. Go to look for students who's working in digital university, or look for outside advice that people will help you. Think about your athletes in your sports. Who are the stars? Who are the heroes? Even at the local community level, how can you bring them on board and help you to grow? Think about your brand, you know, and how you can develop your brand, and think about how you can involve other brands. If you look for partners, think about not just give me money to have a board on the field, because yeah, it could be interesting sometimes, but be more creative. What role partner could play to help you? You know, maybe it could bring value in doing some of this work. You can engage them and playing a role, not just as a partner, but really doing something. And at the end, what is really super important is the experience. The experience you are giving to the player, to their parents, to the spectators, to the referees, to the sport teacher, the coaches, you know, to the fans. That's what really matters. If you are giving them, if you're offering them a great experience, they will come back, they will continue, you know. So that's what really matters. So hopefully I raised some questions, some thoughts. I hopefully brought some ideas on how you can answer some of the questions. But I wanted to open the floor for question and debate, assuming we have still some time.
We have a question from audience. You said sports is business. Is it also possible in countryside where is not so many people and money?
Sorry, can you repeat?
You said sports is a business. Is it also possible in countryside where is not so many people and money?
Yeah, I think when I say sport is business, it's business when you have a big franchise. But what I mean by that is like the way you think about developing your sport or your small club organization. You have to think differently than what we used to think as a sport leader. I used to be involved in some very small sport club in football and handball in France. I remember the sport leaders were usually people who are passionate by sport, who are former sport player and so on. What I'm saying by that is go and bring people who have a different mindset, who has a business mindset to help you to grow. Okay? So it's just about the skill set that you need to have to develop your organization.
What is the hottest trend in sports organizations communication right now? What is the hottest trend in sports organizations communication?
The hottest trend? I would think it's digital and how you engage your fans. Obviously depend on the sports organization, but if you look at the football club, for example, and it will be true for NBA and all these big companies, the investment they are doing is on the digital space. Give you an example, Manchester United has a department on digital, which is about 100 people. So 100 people are working in the digital space. So they are really invested heavily for that. The reason behind that is being able to have or owning the connection with the fans. Because yesterday, what they were doing is partnering with, Facebook, for example. And the connection to the fans was owned by Facebook. So if you want to go back to them, you have to rebuy advertising on Facebook. So what the clubs are doing is trying to develop their own community and having the direct contact. So they're investing quite a lot in that space, which goes along with creating content as well.
Varbūt ir vēl kāds jautājums, vēlams angļu valodā, publikai. Jā, līdz ar to mēs varam teikt, thank you very much for this lecture. Aplausus lūdzu, monsieur Thierry Bora no Francijas.